Most people think you need a backyard, a shovel, and bags of expensive organic soil to grow a pharmacy in your home. They're wrong. And not just wrong in a there's a better way sense. Wrong in the specific way that costs you money every month, keeps you dependent on a system designed to keep you buying, and quietly buries knowledge that humans have carried for thousands of years in a jar on a windowsill. For some of the most medicinally powerful plants on the planet, soil is actually the obstacle. Starting these plants in a glass of water isn't a hack or a beginner's workaround. It is a biological bypass, one that can accelerate active compound production by up to 30% because the plant isn't fighting soil-borne pathogens or moisture stress. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which plants thrive in water, the specific setup that keeps them alive and productive for months, and a propagation method pulled from a 19th century botanical journal and confirmed in traditional West African and Southeast Asian household practice that doubles root development speed without a single product. I'll give you the specific ratios before we're done, but first, I need to tell you what you've been losing by not knowing this. I was at a small place near the office last Tuesday, one of those cafes that does terrible filter coffee but has great morning light, and I noticed a sprig of mint sitting in a glass on the counter. It had been there so long it had grown a root system like a bird's nest, dense, healthy, thriving. It hit me right there. We've been told for decades that medicinal means difficult, that growing anything worth consuming requires investment, preparation, specific conditions. But that mint was producing more menthol in a recycled jam jar than the struggling plants in my garden bed. I went home and cleared my windowsill. If you've ever bought a beautiful herb plant, brought it home, and watched it turn yellow and die within 10 days, this is for you. That is not a willpower problem. It is not a skill problem. It is a medium problem, and we're going to fix it right now. The commercial gardening industry does not profit from simplicity. It profits from your belief that growing requires things, specific things, their things, bags of soil, specialized containers, root hormone gels, pH meters, liquid fertilizers, an expanding stack of inputs that turn something ancient and intuitive into something that feels like it needs a manual and a budget. Here's what they don't tell you. The plants that heal you, the ones humans have used medicinally for 10,000 years, did not evolve in raised beds filled with premium potting mix. They evolved in riverbanks, in flooded margins, in the wet edges of places where soil and water meet and blur. A 2019 review published in the journal Plants documented water propagation success rates across 47 common household medicinal species and found that softwood cuttings rooted in water at rates comparable to, and in several cases exceeding, hormone-treated soil propagation. This was not a fringe finding. It confirmed what traditional growers in West Africa, South Asia, and the Mediterranean have practiced quietly for generations. Someone who knew this was not a botanist. She was a woman in Lagos who kept 6 jars on her kitchen windowsill and never once bought a bag of soil in her life. Her plants fed her family's pharmacy for 30 years. That's the standard we're working toward. Before I go further, let me explain something. A concept called hydrotaxis. In plain language, it's the way a plant's root system moves toward moisture. But when a plant is already in water, it doesn't have to search. Growing in soil is like having to walk to the market every time you're hungry. Growing in water is like living inside the market. The plant stops wasting energy on the hunt and starts putting its entire biological budget into the leaves. That's where the medicine is. When you grow for medicinal use, you want the highest possible concentration of oils and active compounds. Water culture delivers that by removing the stress of the search. The reason this matters here is that every plant in this list is going to perform differently than you've been told, and this mechanism is why. Let me tell you what actually happens when a cutting hits water. The plant, suddenly severed from its root system, enters a survival state. It begins producing a specific class of cells at the cut site, callus tissue. Undifferentiated cells that can become whatever the plant needs most. When that callus is submerged and exposed to oxygen at the waterline, it receives a signal, make roots. This is not complicated. This is ancient biology doing exactly what it was designed to do. The modern gardening industry turned this into a product category. Root hormone gels, cloning solutions, aerated propagation systems. The traditional world turned it into a jar on a windowsill. Now, the plants. Specifically, which ones? Specifically, why they work in water. And specifically, what each one does that makes growing it worth the 30 seconds it takes to set up. Peppermint. This is the plant that will convert you. Place a 4-inch cutting, cut just below a leaf node, into a glass of room temperature water. Strip the lower leaves so nothing rots below the waterline. Put it near a window. In 7 to 10 days, roots appear. In 3 weeks, you have a plant actively producing leaves. Most gardeners believe you need to water peppermint deeply and consistently in a garden bed to keep it productive. That's wrong. In a garden, peppermint is a water thief. In a glass, it is a medicinal powerhouse. Mint contains menthol, menthone, and rosmarinic acid, volatile oils produced at full concentration in water-grown plants. A 2021 study from the University of Bologna confirmed that hydroponic mint retained equivalent essential oil content to soil-grown specimens after the first 6 weeks. If you've ever felt that specific heaviness after a meal, not pain, just that leaden, immovable weight where lying down feels like the only option, peppermint addresses this through a direct mechanism. It relaxes smooth muscle tissue in the digestive tract. Not placebo, smooth muscle relaxation. Documented. 1 cutting becomes 6. 6 become 20. You never buy mint again. Wait, I can already see the comments someone is typing right now. But won't the water grow algae and kill the plant? I thought the same thing. But then I found the answer. If you use a clear glass, yes, you're inviting algae to the party. But if you wrap that glass in dark paper or use an amber bottle, the roots stay in the dark, algae can't photosynthesize, and the plant stays clean. Dark glass over clear glass every time. It also keeps the water cooler, which slows bacterial growth. That is the single most common reason water propagation fails. Not light, not temperature, not the cutting, the glass. Rosemary. Rosemary is famous for being impossible to grow from cuttings. The commercial nursery industry wants you to believe this. They want you buying rooting hormones and special seed-starting mixes. They're hoping you don't realize that rosemary, taken from new, green growth, not woody stem, will root in plain water in 3 to 4 weeks without a single product. Here is the specific cut. Strip the bottom 2 inches of leaves and make a 45-degree cut at the base. That increased surface area is the only way the plant can drink before it has roots. Place it out of direct sun initially. Change the water every 5 days. When roots reach 2 inches, move it to brighter light. A 2016 study published in Therapeutic Advances in Psychopharmacology found that simply being in a room with diffused rosemary essential oil, not consuming it, just breathing ambient air, was associated with significantly improved speed and accuracy on cognitive performance tests. The active compound is 1,8-cineol. It crosses the blood-brain barrier. It is present in fresh rosemary leaf at concentrations that matter. 1 rosemary plant in a glass of water on a kitchen windowsill. Every time you pass it, you are inhaling a compound with documented effects on cognitive function. That is not nothing. If you're half listening to this while doing something else right now, stop. Put whatever you're doing down for 30 seconds, because this next part is the reason the whole video exists. Lemon balm. Most people have never grown this. Most people have never heard of it. That absence is not an accident. Lemon balm, Melissa officinalis, is a member of the mint family and propagates in water with the same ease. Cut below a node, strip lower leaves, place in water. If you struggle with that wired but tired feeling at 10 o'clock at night, body exhausted, mind still circling, lemon balm is addressing the exact neurological mechanism underneath it. It contains terpene compounds that interact directly with your GABA receptors. A 2014 randomized controlled trial published in Nutrients found that participants taking standardized lemon balm extract showed significant reduction in anxiety scores and improved sleep quality versus placebo, with no adverse effects at the doses studied. In soil, lemon balm is an invasive plant that will take over a garden bed. In a glass of water, it is disciplined, contained, and productive. Place the cutting near your bedroom window. You'll understand why within 2 weeks. Basil. Basil is more fragile than mint, which is exactly why the water method protects it. Soil-grown basil is prone to root rot, inconsistent moisture, and the sudden collapse that leaves gardeners confused about what went wrong. In water, with no soil holding excess moisture, the root zone stays clean. Here is something most guides never tell you about basil in water. When the roots reach the bottom of the glass and begin to curl, don't move it to a larger container. That slight crowding signals the plant to produce more secondary metabolites, the compounds that constitute the medicine, as a survival response. A controlled stressor producing a measurable result. The medicinal case for basil is underreported. Eugenol, the compound behind basil's sharp, sweet bite, has documented antimicrobial properties. A 2020 study in food chemistry demonstrated eugenol extract inhibiting the growth of 3 common foodborne pathogens at concentrations found in fresh leaf consumption. Your windowsill jar delivers this fresh. The supermarket bag does not. Eugenol degrades rapidly after harvest. The potency you're paying for in that plastic bag is already partially gone before it reaches the shelf. Are you growing any of these already? Drop soil or water below right now. I want to see where people are starting from. Sage. Sage is the most overlooked plant in this list and possibly the most medicinally significant. It was used in traditional European medicine for centuries before it was reduced to a Thanksgiving garnish. One of the most potent anti-inflammatories you can grow. In a glass of water, sage is slow. It requires 4 to 6 weeks of patience, but the leaf it produces is more tender and more potent than the leathery versions grown in dry soil. That patience is the reason most people skip it, and that is exactly why you should not. Green onion. This is the fastest, the easiest, and the entry point for anyone who has never propagated anything in their life. Take the root end of a grocery store spring onion, the white part with the roots still attached, which you are about to discard. Place it in a shallow glass with just enough water to cover the roots. Set it on any windowsill, any light, any temperature above 15 degrees Celsius. In 48 hours, green shoots are growing. In 1 week, you are harvesting. The medicinal case for alliums, the family spring onions belong to, is built on quercetin and allicin, 2 compounds with extensively documented anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial activity. Quercetin has been specifically studied for its role in modulating the histamine response, relevant to anyone managing seasonal allergies. You are recovering a complete food and medicine source from a grocery scrap that cost you nothing. Which of these have you tried before and lost? Drop your experience in the comments, specifically the ones where you did everything right and it still failed. There's a pattern in those failures that points to one specific mistake, and it is not what most guides tell you. Now, the protocol that changes everything. Traditional West African and Southeast Asian household propagation, documented in ethnobotanical field research from the 1990s and confirmed in small-scale horticultural trials since, uses one specific modification to the basic water setup that consistently accelerates root development. Willow. Willow bark and young willow twigs contain indole butyric acid, IBA, the same compound sold commercially in root hormone gels. When willow material is submerged in water, it leaches IBA into the water at low, consistent concentrations. Soak willow cuttings overnight. Use that water as your propagation medium. Your cuttings receive a natural, free hormone bath that commercial products replicate at cost. If you have access to any willow species anywhere in the world, you have access to the most effective natural root accelerant that exists. The product industry replaced this with a gel in a tube. This is what they replaced it with. The full setup. Dark glass over clear glass. Water at room temperature. Cold shocks callus formation. Heat promotes bacterial growth. Water changed every 4 to 5 days without exception. Indirect light for rooting. Brighter light once roots reach 2 inches. That is the entire system. Here is the part the nurseries don't want you to reach. You never have to buy these plants again. Take a cutting from your water-grown plant and place it in a new glass. You have created a biological clone. One 500 Naira grocery store herb becomes a lifetime supply of medicine without a single bag of soil. This is not just gardening. This is food and medicine sovereignty. The infinite stem. One plant, indefinitely forward, at 0 additional cost. I almost wish I hadn't started growing this way. Because once you see how simple it is, once you understand that a recycled jar and a cutting you took from something you already bought can replace $12 worth of dried herbs that lost 80% of their potency sitting in a warehouse, you can't go back to the version of the world where that felt normal. You're stuck with this now, just like I am. Save this video. The next time you're at a market and you buy mint or basil, you'll want to come back to the propagation protocol before you throw those stems away. Share this with someone you know who believes they can't grow anything because they don't have a garden. Show them the spring onion setup. Watch what happens to that belief in 48 hours. If you want to understand your land, even if that land is a windowsill, better than the commercial industry has time to explain, subscribe. We go this deep every single week. You now know something most people with gardens don't. Not because it's obscure, because it was made to feel unnecessary. A glass of water, a cutting from something you already bought, 4 to 6 days of patience. That is the distance between dependency and sovereignty over your own medicine cabinet. There is one layer I didn't have room for today, and it is the piece that changes how everything else in this video works. The practice of companion propagation in water, growing 2 medicinal species in the same vessel to create a symbiotic root environment, is documented in pre-colonial West African agricultural records and produces measurably higher essential oil concentrations in both plants simultaneously. I am 30 days into a personal trial of this right now. Come back when those results are ready.